Hey, it's Drybear. I've been getting tons of questions about my Vuhdo profile and general setup for Vuhdo when it comes to healing. So that's what we're gonna do today. We're gonna talk about how to set up Vuhdo, powers of Vuhdo. I still think that Vuhdo is the best click to heal, mouse over, or healing add-on that you can get. However, one of the downsides of Vuhdo is that the menu is quite confusing and it took me a long time to learn it. I've been using it since Cataclysm. So today we're gonna talk about how to set up Vuhdo. I'll share with you my Vuhdo profile. So if you want to import it into the game and use mine, you certainly can, but that's what we're doing today. If you have any questions or comments for me, you'll find me live every day on twitch.tv/Drybear. Come by and say hi. All right, let's talk Vuhdo. Vuhdo is spelled V-U-H-D-O. It is a healing add-on, but I end up using it for all my characters just because I get used to the party frames. It is a party frame / raid frame add-on that has tons and tons of options. Like there are so many different things that you can do with this. It has stuck through so many different expansions and all these options are really, really cool. So today we're gonna go through everything that Vuhdo can do, or most things, not all the niche things, but just in general, how to set it up, how to use it, the powers of it, and then I'll share with you, down in the description is my, a paste for my specific healer profile, which looks like this. I have it set up with a roll on the left, but what's cool about it, especially for characters that have a lot of buffs, and healings, like Resto Druid, you can fit regrowth, you can get basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 slots, but that's not all, because then you can add timers. Like when we got Adaptive Swarm, I put a timer here to show that Adaptive Swarm is there, and you can just show all the other icons on it, which is super nice, super cool, super flexible. Pretty awesome. You can get Vuhdo on Curse Forge. You can get it on with Overwolf. You can download it yourself and install it. If you're looking for it, I'll put a link down in the description for the actual page of it. But it's it's anywhere you get add-ons, you'll find it. We'll start with the most important aspect of Vuhdo, which is going to be your hotkeys for healing, and then we'll go into customization, how to set it up. So go to spells and go to mouse. This is all that you're going to need to set things up. So what you do is you set up the base mouse buttons. You have left, right click, middle click, and then I have like 4 and 5, and if you have a bigger mouse too, you can set everything up to that. Then you have your modifiers, right? So this is no modifiers, mouse key. Then you have control. So if I'm holding down control, right? So if I left click, it does regrowth on this character. If I right click, it does rejuvenation. If I'm holding control and then left click, it does wild growth. If I'm holding control and I right click, it does adaptive swarm. So this allows you to just be able to hold the modifiers and click on everyone in the raid group or in your party, and very easily and very instantly, without interacting with your hotbars, apply heals to people, and you can have setups for whatever it is that you want. The other things that you want to have on this specifically, I like having a target button. I've just always historically used middle mouse for that, just so like if I have to manually cast something, like for example, I got a nice Broodkeeper's Promise on my Druid, which targets a tank and puts a hot on them for an hour. I can, middle click them, or if I need to res or something like that. Cool things about Vuhdo as well is it has some auto features in it. If you're playing a healer or really any character that can res, if there's a person that's dead in your party and you left click, it will automatically start casting a res, just so, it just automatically does it. It's awesome for B-resing. If you're playing any of the classes that can B-res, super nice mid-combat. You run up here, you left-click on someone, it'll automatically cast your B-res and get them up. But back to the keybinds. So you have all these modifiers here. You just have to put the name of the spell. It can be lowercase. I don't believe it's case-sensitive. I do it just because I'm OCD, I guess. But I like having it clean here, but you just put them all on that. And you find some paradigm for how you do this. I start out with left-click. It's same thing if you watch my Keybindings video. I keep everything global. So left click is my emergency heal. It's my high mana cost heal. For Druid, it's regrowth. It could be Flash of Light. It could be, flash heal. It could be healing or healing surge, right? Whatever it is, it's always that left click. Then my hots or my low cost heal is right click. Control left click or control right click is usually like a more mana basic heal for like Holy Light for Paladins. So you can put whatever you want in this. The one thing that I will mention, just since I'm on the topic of it, for whatever reason, Primordial Wave, when it got ported over to Dragonflight, didn't get updated properly. So as an example here, I have Primordial Wave Shadowlands and Primordial Wave. for whatever reason, regular Primordial Wave, when you try to cast it, it says you're in the wrong zone, which tells you that it's still trying to cast the Shadowlands version of Primordial Wave. If you're having this issue, this drove me nuts for like a week at the start of Dragonflight until I figured out how to do it. All you have to do is just spell it this way. Primordial Wave, no space, parentheses, Shadowlands, parentheses. If you do that, it'll cast the new one. So boom, Primordial Wave's out. You can do your healing wave. So if you're a healing shaman, resto shaman, and you're having that problem and you're using Vuhdo, or anything that does the name of the spell, for whatever reason they haven't fixed this yet, just put Shadowlands in parentheses afterwards. So that's what the keybind setup is. You just have to find something that works for you on normal modifiers, non-modifiers, control, alt plus control, alt plus shift, alt control shift, shift. You have so many options. So you can put all these modifiers in for all of your mouse buttons. And it's amazing. You have those there. Next, let's talk about general, the basic setup here. There's some options that help you customize how you want it to appear. You can have the panels hide when it's empty, you have nothing there. You can hide it when you're in a party of up to 5, so it only shows up for raid frames. You can hide it when you go into like pet battles, or you can have it for dragon riding, things like that. You can hide it when you're all alone, so you're not in a party at all, so this goes away. I don't do that because I just get used to healing myself through Vuhdo always, whether I'm in a party or not. So super useful, but you can mess around with these to get it to work just the way you want. You can also have it activate due to group size based on specific things. You can have it have a different presentation for each of the group sizes as well, which is nice. If you ever want to try to mess around with that, you can go to the Move tab here down at the bottom, and then this will be each of your groups. So you can actually click on these. You can move these around. And you can choose whether it's a group or a specific class type or something that you specify ahead of time. The way I have it set up this way is I just have them going from right to left, where the right side, it fills in that way, and I have it feeding to the left so that it starts with me and my party here, and then it goes to the left. So if I have a party, it's right by the middle of the screen. If I'm going into raid, it fills out towards the left of the screen and has it going. I don't really have anything set up for like a 40-man raid. It'll go off the screen because it's really just world bosses that you do that for. So I don't really care all that much, but if you want to be a stickler for it, and get that. If you're testing it, super nice. You can tell it what size you want, and then you can hold this down to view the test. So if you want to say let's try 3, it'll show you 3 and make up names and classes. 5, there you go. Then you can go to 15, it'll try to show everything. This is what it would look like, and then you can kind of see what all that lines up. The next biggest thing in priority would be the hot icons. I think this is probably the question I get the most as people that are getting into classes, specifically like Resto Druid, that have a lot of hots and things to keep track of, is the hot icon. So go down here to panels. I don't know why it's organized this way. It doesn't, it kind of makes sense. So go down to panels, and then you want to go on the right side here all the way down to hot icons. And this is where you're going to set up the icons. Personally, for me, I like putting roll icon, which is, so you have your basic spells. You can tell it whatever spell. You can type things in too, right? You can say like, I don't know, I want Guardian Spirit from Priest, right? I want that to show up in that spot. And it tells you where the spots are right here, right? So you can change where they are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You can have them lined. You can choose different options and make them move around as well. I just like the first one. I think it's really clean because I like having, there's one thing that I like to know whether it's on or off on every class that heals. So I like having that at 7. And then you can kind of mess around with those places, or you can even kind of have your own locations as well if you want to use that. I just use the first one because I think it's all you really need. So then for those 7 slots, as you see listed here, you can tell it what you want to be in that slot, right? So 1, you can put roll icon. 1 or 3, I think, are the best for this. But what's cool about roll icon is one of these pre-made options. Click roll icon and it shows DPS, tank, or healer. This means that no matter what group I'm in, I can be in a full pug group. I don't know anyone in there, and it's very easy for me to see the tanks. The reason I like doing this is because I don't like using a separate frame for tanks. You can do this if you want. So you can put main tanks out there, and you can show them separately. So it'll have it in the normal group. You can even specify it to not show it in the normal group and only show it in the separate frame. Some people like doing this. Keep in mind that when you use this feature, the main tanks, the raid leader has to right click in the raid frame and set the tanks to main tank for it to work. The reason why I stopped using it is because sometimes you join groups where the raid leader, like if you're pugging or something, the raid leader doesn't manually set the targets to main tank, which means the frame won't work until they do that. So I stopped relying on it. I just find them by their role icon in the actual frame, and then I never have to think about it again. But that's one of the things I would recommend using is role icon. There's tons of other stuff in here that I would recommend picking up as well. Summon status is a nice one. This one is when you're summoning someone at the stone or a warlock stone, you'll get the stone icon appearing over them, and then it'll get a green check mark when they accept the summon. I use my unit frames for that. So if I'm like, targeting myself, it'll show up on shadowed unit frames. So I don't have to have it in a hot icon spot for my healers. But yeah, there's other options in there as well. You can find AoE advice. This used to work well. I don't use it anymore because they removed some of the functionality that made this work extremely well. What this would do is if you're doing like Circle of Healing or, Light of Dawn or something, it would suggest which target in the raid and put an icon over them, who would be the best target for it, like Wild Growth, right? Who would be the most central to reach as many targets as possible. They took out the functionality that made that work perfectly. Vuhdo still tries to do it the best that it can, but it's not super great, but you can use it if you'd like. Then you have like extra pieces you can do. Clusters are really nice, but pretty advanced. Grids are nice as well. You can do health and mana on them as well. You can add things onto it. You can do like monk stagger for brewmasters. You can see how much stagger is on somebody. There's tons of stuff in here. I'm not going to go through all of it because there's an insane amount. You can do special resources like Arcane Mage. You can do beacons. You can do Weakened Soul. You can do whatever, like Paladin debuffs, things like that. You can put those all in here. But I think the most obvious use for it is just to be for the icons and the abilities that you want. So, for example, on Resto Shaman, the two most important to me are Riptide and Earth Shield, right? So if I take these off and then I close this and I heal myself, you have Riptide here, and then you put on Earth Shield and you have these here as well. So you need those listed on the actual, so you can even choose whether it's someone else's or not. You can see if someone else's Riptide shows there or not, but then you just type in the name. I don't think this is case sensitive either. I think you just put in whatever name you want. If it's like Trail of Light or Echo of Light or, Beacon of Faith, Beacon of Light, Beacon of Virtue, you can show all those in there. Renewing Mist, whatever it is that you want to show, you can have it on these spots. You can choose where they go on the set. But that's just kind of like where I like it. So in the middle, I always have the one that's active. So for the tank, I make sure they have Earth Shield on, and then I have these other ones on here as well. Resto Shaman doesn't have that many. Well, if we jump on the Resto Druid, then we know that we have tons and tons and tons and tons of extra icons to deal with, which is really, really big. So panels, hot icons, you have all these little buttons here. You've got everything set up. So you can kind of fill these up. Again, you can do extra things on top of it. You can have bars stacking down, which is really useful for getting extra bits on there. Things like, like I have my little extra hot here. You can have your externals on it. Like, if you want to use Iron Bark or Blessing of Sacrifice, you can have those on there. I'm not gonna go into like every single class and that kind of bit just for this video because I want it to be shorter. But just know that hot icons is one of the best places for you to do this. And you can also do hot bars. You can choose where the bars go, which looks like this. And you can put anything you want in here. Like if you want to do Iron Bark, whatever, there you go. Boom, now you've got an extra little bit in there. Super nice. I probably needed that anyway. Next, you can jump into some color setups for the bars. There's a lot of customization options in here. Again, if you want to just use my profile, or you can find a profile online that you like for Vuhdo, this is just the one that I have. So you can have things that are, when they become mind controlled, it'll change the color of the bar. You can change the colors of these. I like this just being separate from everything else. You can even change based on poison, disease, curse, magic, those sort of things. Then you get things like overshield. When you have the shields, you have heal absorbs. Heal absorbs are really, really good. It's nice to know that you have to burn through this. Most fights where heal absorbs exist, you'll know they're coming, so you don't really need to have it on there. But it's a nice option to know. You just kind of set the background, you have the text on that, and then you activate it. You can also have raid icons on there. I don't use it just because I don't think it adds anything for me personally, whether I know someone's marked by a target or something like that. I've never had an issue with it, but you can turn this on if you want so that when they get marked by something, this is useful if you use things like bigwigs or DBM where it auto marks someone. It says like, you know, purple now has crazy dot on them. It is nice to be able to have that. I just don't care enough to run it. I don't think it adds anything for me personally, but maybe you do. So it's here under colors if you want to use that. Under tools, profiles, this is where you're going to import things. So you have, this is my left side healer spec. I have tons of them, but this is my left side one, which is the left side of the screen. You'll just hit import and you'll copy the string in and hit apply. And this is where you can set things up. But I wanted to notify this because, or let you know this is here, because you can go to key layouts and you can actually have it change based on spec. So maybe you're someone who plays like Druid, for example, you want to have Vuhdo up when you play Resto, but not when you play another spec. So you can have this like specific layout work and have hot icons and hot panels show up for this. When you have specific specs that you switch to, and it'll automatically do it, which is super nice. I also don't mess with that. Like I'm super like minimalist in that. I like just doing things manually if they need to be done. But I try to not have it as much upkeep for myself, like have to switch through. But if you're only playing one class and you like to switch between the specs, then that's absolutely fine. Next, let's talk about buffs. This is super nice. This system allows you to, if you are a character that has buffs like Mark of the Wild, Arcane Intellect, your Fortitude to keep people up, you can have it show on Vuhdo when they're missing a buff. So someone dies and comes back, you can rebuff them to make sure they have it. That's all under here on buffs. And you can go through and enable this and customize it as well. But just to make sure that they have a specific buff, you can do things where like it modifies whether they have a high level buff or it's about to come out, or it warns you when there's a rebuff timer. I don't mess with any of this stuff, but you can certainly use it if you want to, and you can have it prioritize specific things like that. But that's what the buff part of this is for. Next is debuffs, and I think you should get very familiar with this. You probably want to start with a setup for yourself on debuffs, but this one gets super interesting. So what you can do, and I recommend if you're newer to use this checkbox, but you can say only if it's removable, show it. So you'll have situations where you're in a fight and people are just constantly getting debuffs and debuffs all over the place, and they get something that you can't remove. It helps to reduce the noise to have this check mark, which means that if they get something, it doesn't, that you can't do anything about. So not all healers are made equal, by the way. So if you do your cleanse, some can cleanse curse, some can cleanse poison, some can cleanse disease, all can cleanse magic. But if you're a character that can't do curse, sometimes you don't want curses showing up on your bar because there's nothing you can do about it. So think about that as an option here. I think debuffs, you can play with these settings to really get something working for you. You can also add in special ones. So for example, one of the ones you get for Mythic Plus is Grievous Wounds, which is a dot that deals damage to targets that are under 90% health. And then specifically for Resto Druid, which struggles with topping people, it's nice to know when that dot has gone away. So you can have special add-ons with different modifiers for it. And there's a big list of stuff in here you can pick from if you really want to. Yeah, things like Grievous Wound are super nice. Necrotic, when it was a thing, is nice to keep track of. And maybe even for PvP, if you use these frames, there might be value for that as well. The last part of this is visuals. You can have them stack in a corner. I like having them in the bottom right because there's, because I use, if you remember, the panel that I use for hot icons is this one where the corners are not taken. So I have this as kind of like this, more of a diamond shape. And then when we do debuffs, I have them all in the bottom right. So there's no hot icons overlapping with that. So like when we're doing these and you have, there's actually icons, the debuffs will be next to it. And there's no conflict with that. And I think I'll stop the video there. Vuhdo is super powerful. There's a lot, I haven't even gotten to bouquets yet. I haven't gotten to clusters or indicators. There's tons of things you can do that are really nice. I think if you get a good profile set up for you and you import it, for most people that aren't super picky, you'll basically be able to get whatever you want out of it. It's fine. So I'll just stop the video before it gets too long. I mean, I've already been talking for a long time. So that's the video for Vuhdo. I'll have my profile down in the description if you want to use it. You can also find several online for yourself, but For the people that are asking about how to set up Vuhdo and how to use it, this is the video for it. And if there's interest, let me know if you guys would like to have an advanced guide on Vuhdo and go into some really detailed stuff. But I think for 98% of people, they're not going to care. It's just setting it up so it works as a healer frame is really all you need. So that's where I'm going to end it. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you have any questions or comments for me, you'll find me live every day on twitch.tv/Drybear. Come by and say hi.
If you enjoyed yourself today, leave a like down below. You can support me and my work on Patreon and view Patreon exclusive content, link in the description. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one.